Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's edition of the Risk Safeguard Advantage podcast. I'm John Bielik, your host as always, and today I'm being joined by a special guest, Sinclair's very own construction safety professional, Matt Leonard. Matt, say hello.
Oh, thanks, John, for having me.
Oh, glad to have you. So we're here today to talk to you about a very important topic. You know, if there's one industry that Sinclair focuses extremely heavily on, it's heavy construction, civil construction, utility construction, everyone that works on and around roads. And this week is National Work Zone Awareness Week, and for good cause, Matt. You know, when we look at the statistics, and unfortunately you would think with technology and awareness of safety, workplace accidents on the roadside would continue to go down, and that's not the case.
No, it's not. In 2019, we had 842 accidents within work zones. And sadly, 135 workers were killed. That's an astonishing number for 1 year. And 133 pedestrians were killed. So it's a real problem that companies need to address. And it is getting worse. And we know some of the reasons why. Anyone who drives out on the roadway today, you'll see distracted drivers all the time. They're using their cell phones, they're eating, they're doing whatever they are. And that backs up the number one cause for the accidents in work zones, and that's rear-end collisions. So folks are not seeing that there's a work zone ahead of them for whatever reason. They're just not paying attention. They're speeding, and we have those horrible numbers. Losing 135 workers who just merely got up, got dressed like you and I did, went to work to make a living, and they get killed.
Yeah.
And then sadly enough, for companies that are setting up these work zones, what you particularly got to pay attention to is, as sad as that number, but 133 pedestrians. That's really an enormous liability for any company doing road work.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, you know, it's been a challenge for the industry for some time, and there's a lot of resources and effort going towards it. You know, one of the things as I was doing my research for this podcast today, there's actually a memorial dedicated to victims of work zone fatalities, and it's hosted on the website that's behind us. But out of respect to the victims, their families, I didn't want to play that in this video, but I think that kind of speaks to the root cause of the problem, which is people are still getting killed, getting up, going to work every day. And so that's why I wanted to dedicate this week's podcast to it. You know, you have some previous experience working on the roadside, being a safety director on the roadside. Is there anything you'd care to talk to people about as they're setting up their construction sites? You know, one thing that we're talking a lot about is people's just natural distraction after the long year that we've had with COVID-19. And I'm noticing it on the roads, and I think you are as well, that people really are not thinking clearly right now. And I think I'm just concerned about the construction season ahead and protecting our workers that are building America's infrastructure. So what can you share with your past experience, Matt, and just you know, any advice you have?
It's got to be the overall planning process, even from the bidding. It's taking a look at the job itself, and how are you going to manage both your workers, to protect your workers, look at the pedestrians, and then how are you going to be able to control the traffic within that work zone? It has to be a lot of preparation in it, a lot of education to your workforce for they understand it. That's why it's great to have these weeks, so we can kind of step back, take a pause, see what we do really well, and also look at these statistics and realize that if we're not constantly trying to improve and get better, we're not going to. And these numbers will continue. So it's a really strong effort. It's a great week for anybody that works out in construction along the roadway to understand that and really focus on this week. But not just this week, it's got to be throughout the year. It's got to be a safety culture that everybody embraces and realizes the hazards of working on roadways.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's a very dangerous industry, and you know, there's a lot of good contractors out there that unfortunately things outside of their control end up causing an accident on their scene. But the goal of raising the awareness is to let our contracting networks and construction clients know that you have to do everything in your power and your control to protect your workers. And especially this year, especially with all the distraction in everyone's lives, assume the worst and reverse engineer from there. And we know that if you implement best practices, you work with some of our folks like Matt and Nathan, we can do what we can on our end to support you in your initiatives. But at the beginning of 21, I said the biggest business risk this year to all businesses was going to be their workforce and the challenges around their workforce. And we're hearing that play out in all of our conversations. Finding good people is the hardest thing for any business owner to do right now. So what can you do about that? Well, at the beginning, and most importantly, protect the ones you've got. Keep them from getting hurt, keep them from having accidents. And if you work on that day in and day out, you will be successful. And so we just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. This is a video that we're talking to the contractors out there, but more importantly, we're talking to the general public. Be careful. We need these construction crews to be able to do their jobs so that we can get to our jobs, get to the places in our lives that are important. And please pay attention. Everyone's guilty of it, looking at their cell phone while driving. But just assume that your child or your loved one is on the other side of those orange cones, and maybe just give them a break. Drive safe, be safe, let them live, let them work. Matt, any closing comments?
No, I think you said it perfectly, John. Slow down. When you get to the work zone, slow down. Get to the other lane. Give them their space. You're going to get through the work zone. It's only going to be a minute or two. And that minute or two, you may have saved someone's life.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Matt, thanks for joining the podcast this week. Great to
Great.
have you, as always. And everyone out there, have a safe week. Be safe, be well, slow down, and pay attention especially when you're driving through those construction zones. Take care.